So you all know I have covered the 2024 Africa Twin inside and out, top to bottom, from modifications to rides to tires, you name it, I've covered it. But today, I feel like we got the most important video I've ever done on this bike, and that is the long-term owner's review. And as you can see right down here, I have 8,162 miles on this bike. Heck, I just got back from a road trip of 2,047 miles. So again, this is gonna be a real owner's review, someone that's actually ridden a bike, not a media bike or a press bike or a test ride or something like that where I'm all giddy and butterflied about it. We're gonna talk about the pros, the cons, what I think about the bike after riding it so much. And you know what? I didn't even realize I parked next to this tree with that big old branch that's gonna come down. Hopefully I don't get knocked out in this video. And number one, and most importantly, where I wanna start with this bike is, again, something that really just sits so good with me, being an owner of a previous Africa Twin, a 2022 Africa Twin Adventure Sport, or heck, even a Triumph Tiger, a lot of tall ADV bikes. With the new Africa Twin Adventure Sport, it is amazing what they have done here. The height of this is just unbelievable. Every time I get on it and ride, and I'm just like, there's no way I'm on an Africa Twin. I mean, I can flat foot this. I'm right at 6 feet, 32-inch inseam, and I got a little bit of space in there. I can dance this bike around and hold it up. I mean, if it goes too far, it's definitely gonna go over. But the positioning of this bike is so confidence inspiring. If you're on road in the twisties, you feel like you're almost on like a sport bike. And then if you're off road, you feel like you're on a smaller dual sport because you can put your feet down. You don't have to gun and be like, oh, hopefully I get over this or I'm going down. No, you can just go slowly, put your feet down, and you're good to go. So the height of this bike is absolutely game changing and one of the best things about it. It's not that big, tall, intimidating adventure bike. It is so confidence inspiring, the seating position on this, whether if you're a taller or a shorter person. And sticking right on that same topic of riding position and feel, this 19-inch front wheel that they did right here is amazing. I absolutely love it. Every bike I've had before has been 21-inch. And you know, we all think, oh, you need a big 21-inch wheel for off-roading. Well, I've done plenty of off-roading with this. I'm not aggressive. I don't think any of us are gonna be with a big old heifer of a bike like this. And this 19-inch front wheel does it amazing. And it is so good on a road getting up there or in the twisties. Again, you feel like you're on that sport bike. So we got a lot to go over in this video, but those two things right there, I mean, I just had to start it out with. I had to start it out with the most important, which I guess in videos you're usually supposed to save the best for last, right? But with this bike, those are the two things you have to mention. That's what separates this bike from many other bikes. Again, if you're on road, you feel like you're on a sport bike. Off-road, you got all that confidence. It is totally different than any other adventure bike I have ever ridden. Now I want to flip things up a little bit. As we were just on a very positive note, I want to talk about my biggest complaint on this bike, and that is right here, the shifter. Not necessarily the shifter itself, but the quick shifter. We're spending upwards of $18,000 on this bike, and Honda doesn't include this $300 quick shifter. That is just mind-blowing. The Transalp has a quick shifter, the Triumphs do, the KTMs, even though you got to pay to unlock them, you know? But this should be on this bike, $18,000. Heck, even on the base at 14,000 bucks. Honda needs to include this on this bike. It's like, why don't they? And again, it's one of those mods you need. It's that good on this bike and truly makes it so much more fun to ride. And you know, since we're on a negative note here, let me get one other thing that I don't like out of the way here. That is the seat. Well, you can see I got the seat concept seats on this bike, which I did a whole review on, and this is so much better, mainly because it's wider, but most importantly, which I probably can't show in the camera, but the stock seat slopes down. Even if you put it in a high position, especially if you got it in low position, right here where you're seeing this foam, it probably cuts down like this way on the stock seat. So you're always sliding forward, pinching your bits and your goodies right down there. It is not comfortable. So two benefits on this one. Number one, it's wider, so it's so much more comfortable for long trips. But most importantly, it's almost like that flat slope. It doesn't slope down like the stock one. The stock one is much softer. This is definitely a little firmer. It is breaking in now that I've got so many miles on it, but it is still firmer than the stock one. So that's a little bit of a stinker. But again, I could not deal with the slope of the stock one. You know what? Since we're on this roll of negative things, I'm just going to be a negative Nelly here. And I have to point out one more thing that I do not like on this bike, and I didn't like it on my 2022 as well. That is the integration of CarPlay on this. As you all have seen my mod, I've covered multiple times. I have a separate CarPlay device that I use strictly just for CarPlay. It also has cameras and such on it. But anyways, I got CarPlay, so then this screen can stay up here. I also have my phone over here, which I use when I'm off-road, so I can zoom and pan and then leave a map over here. I know some people are like, yo, screen overload. But again, it has its purpose. Say I don't even have my phone up here. If this is running CarPlay onto this, it's real finicky. You got to have your phone pair or your headset paired to this, and then the bike, and so on and so forth, and the right cable. It's just an absolute pain in the neck. Now, you can buy little shortcuts that you can plug into there and stuff. I've never done that. But again, using it as it is ridiculous. So now I can have my phone, and this is always running what it is, and then the bike is running what it is. This should be a wireless CarPlay, and that should be good. And it should be like the new CF Moto, where they're going to split it in half, where you can have CarPlay over here, and then over here you can have your bike's information, your gear, your gas gauge or something. But no, on this, it's one or the other, which drives me nuts. And right along with that connection, it's just bad. You know, I do have one other mild complaint here. I always stated I want my channel to better the space, right? Not just to fluff up a manufacturer or something. So I want to point things out, and hopefully manufacturers watch these videos. I know a lot of them do, and they can take notes from this stuff, right? But one little thing I really wish the Africa Twin had were light up controls. I mean, you got a plethora of buttons here, right? Which, again, I've ridden multiple Africa Twins, owned multiple of them. So I'm kind of used to it here, but even if you got DCT, you got more controls over here. But I wish these controls were backlit. I really do. Just a tiny light behind them would make a world of difference, kind of like Triumph does. Like, that should be something, again, that should be standard on this bike, and would just make such an improvement. All right, enough being negative here. Let's get back to the positives, because this bike is full of them. And right here, the looks. Like, can we all just admit this is the best looking adventure bike out there? Definitely the adventure sport with the red, white, and blue. I wish they would bring the red, white, and blue base version into the States. But then with the gold wheels, even though the forks mismatch a little bit, it's still awesome with the handles and everything. Now, as you all know, I did take off my blue fender, and I think this white one looks so much better. Just, again, it's just pieced together and feels complete. That dark blue one looked goofy on there. Now I want to touch about the power of this bike, as it's pretty much similar to the older Africa Twins, and if you've ridden one, you're going to be right at home with these. Now, I have the manual version, as you all know. My 2022 was DCT, but the power of this, again, when I'm riding in twisty mountains, off-roading, or just riding around town, it is perfect. The throttle response is perfect. The clutch feels really good. It's just everything feels very nice and well balanced on this. And I think some of you might be asking, hey, well, should I go to DCT or the manual? I'll be honest with you, I do miss DCT. I'm a big fan of DCT, but not if I'm off-roading. If I'm off-roading, I hate DCT. I mean, you hit a little divot, you go back, you're gonna whiskey throttle that thing and end up in the bushes or off the edge of the mountain. It's happened to me before. Luckily, it was just the bushes. But again, DCT is amazing, especially if you're in a big city or you're just cruising around. But if you're buying an adventure bike, you're probably gonna wanna do some off-roading, and DCT falls apart right there. They need a kill switch with a clutch on DCT, hence the reason I went with the manual version here, because again, I do use my adventure bike for off-roading. I hope they bring the auto clutch that they're bringing to their 650s and stuff over to the Africa Twin, because it's like DCT but with a clutch. But again, with the manual version, it is just well balanced. It feels great. The power is plentiful for sure for highways, back roads, off-road, or anything. The only thing you need is, again, that quick shifter. Now, going right in line with power, the gas mileage of this bike is not the best. You can see on my recent 2,000 mile trip, I was getting roughly at 41 miles per gallon. You can see over here with 6,000 miles just about, I'm getting 43 pretty much. And then over here for my last fill up, I'm getting 42. So you're right around the 40s. So gas mileage isn't great, but again, you got a whole lot of gusto in this bike. And talking about power, oh my gosh, whatever Honda changed in the exhaust note on this bike, this thing sounds amazing. It's not annoying, it's not gurgly by any means, it just has some nice body and bass to it. I don't know if the mic can pick it up, we're just idling here, but let's go on up here to the handle and give it a little bit of gusto. Oh my gosh, I hope the camera or my microphone can pick that up, because it sounds so good. It's just like deep bass note, but it's not annoying or, you know, just ear piercing by any means. It sounds so good, and everybody that's by the bike, or everyone I go ride with, they're like, man, that thing sounds so good. And whatever Honda did here, they nailed it. Now, something else about the adventure sport, which I absolutely love, and oh my gosh, it truly does make a difference, that is the electronic suspension here. As you see, you got your overall, your front, We can scroll down and you got a couple other options, your preload, which that's a little bit beyond me. I still got to learn about preload, but you got your rear, and then you can set your ride modes as far as 1 or 2, and then have, let me get back to the other screen. You can see you can have multiple other options and then change the suspension per each one that you want. And that electronic suspension, as gimmicky as it sounds, it's like it really played a huge role in my recent trip to Arkansas when I'm just diving into these twisties and I set that suspension to hard. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Because again, the bike wouldn't dip down or anything. But then when I got off road and it's like, all right, we usually think you want hard suspension when you're off road, right? Our dual sports and such. But I loosened up my suspension and just started taking up those bumps, and it's just a whole lot more enjoyable and comfortable to ride. Because no, I'm not out there jumping this bike. I'm just riding it down the trail. And when I softened up that suspension off road, it was so comfortable. Being able to flip back and forth or create a riding mode for each situation when I was on my trip was absolutely game changing, and it made the bike so much better for each situation. So if you're debating on the electronic suspension there and just thinking, maybe it's just a gimmick, I don't need to spend $4,000 more, whatever it is, from the adventure sport to the base trim, let me tell you what, that electronic suspension is totally worth it. Now, as far as the tires that come on the Africa Twin Adventure Sport, at least here in the States, they're the AT41s, the Bridgestone complete street tires. As you see, I am using the the Dunlop Trail Max Mission, which are completely worn down. You can see the middle, they got this little tread bit in the middle. The 18-inch or the 17-inch doesn't have that. My buddy on the BMW, his is still a full block there, but on the Africa Twin, you got that. So these tires are almost turned into street tires as well. They were not good off-road, but I also did those AX41s on this, which I didn't like on the bike, honestly, but now seeing what these tires have come to, I might go back to the AX41s. I'm not too sure, but the stock tires are definitely road tires. They're very good tires for the road if you plan on sticking on that, but they're horrible off-road. Now these I thought would be a whole lot better, but again, with that middle lug right there, I don't know, that's pretty darn disappointing. So I might go back to the AX41s, but then I lose all the great road qualities of this bike. So it's really tough pick. Let me know what tire you're using on your Africa Twin, and maybe I'll go that route, because I'm striking out here. So as you notice, there's a lot of pros with this bike, some really good pros, and then there's some negatives, which could be hit or miss for you. We're talking about me as the owner, how I ride the bike, which again is going to be different for a lot of people. Heck, you may like the seat. Heck, you might plan on keeping yours on the road so the tires don't matter for you, you know? So on and so forth there. But for me, it's a toss-up there. Is the bike perfect? No. But I will go out and say this. This is the best adventure bike I have ever owned, I have ever ridden. The flaws that I mentioned right there are easy fixes, easy swaps, and they're done and out of the way. This is hands down the best adventure bike I have owned. But let's shake things up here a little bit. And if you've been around my channel for a while, you kind of know how this video is going to end. I am selling this bike. It's actually listed for sale right now. What? Why the heck am I doing that after I just said it was the best adventure bike I've ever owned? Well, if you watched my recent Triumph Scrambler videos, that bike just connected with me, right? It was the least traction videos on my channel. Like, everyone knows about the Scrambler. No one wants to see it. We all know about it. And as a YouTuber, you want the latest and greatest, the hottest products, you know what I mean? That's not necessarily why I got this bike. I love the Africa Twin. Again, I think it's the perfect bike. It really is. But that Triumph truly sits with me. I wanted to just get on that constantly. When the Africa Twin, I'm kind of like, okay, what am I going to do with it? Where am I going to go with it? If that makes sense. The Triumph, I'm just like, let me get on it and go. I'm not chasing the latest and greatest here. I'm chasing my passion. And again, that Triumph Scrambler just connected with me. So that's my plan right now, is to go to a Triumph Scrambler. I don't know. Once this sells, then maybe I'll change my mind. But maybe I'll change my mind and just delete the listing. I don't know, because I do love this bike and I stick by my words. It's the best adventure bike. You all understand passion, and you just got to chase it sometimes.